before we do anything else, I just want to comment for the record that yes, I did cut my hair into a mullet. That is something that happened. And I have no regrets. I have read all the menopause books, right? And a thing I still did not manage to hold on to, even though I knew that the texture of gray hairs was going to be different from my naturally colored hair, just the color that I had the rest of my life. I did not know that due to hormonal changes, both estrogen and thyroid changes, the shape of a hair follicle would change, and therefore my whole head's hair texture was going to change. And I now have quite wavy into full ringlet curls when my hair has mostly been just barely wavy. And so I cut my hair into a mullet to make the most of my perimenopause curls. Just for the record, I want people to know that that is a thing that I made real in my life. It's my first ever mullet, the age of 48.
It's important. It's a big step.
Yeah. I have been asking for months, should I get bangs? You have bangs. I've been like for months, should I cut myself bangs? Should I cut myself bangs? And you're like, no.
That's because when I have cut bangs, I've always wanted there to be someone to say no to me. And remind me.
But you did cut yourself bangs.
I regret it. I am instantly already growing them back out.
You regret your bangs. I don't regret my bangs because they are a full part of the mullet situation.
I don't regret the bangs. I just don't want them anymore. And it takes so long.
It does.
To undo
half an inch a month is all I get.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about my hair. I just needed to be transparent with the listeners.
That you are currently...
Who deserve to know that they're listening to somebody
who has a mullet.
Who currently has a mullet.
Who gave themselves a mullet.
Yes. I did it to myself at the tail end of a migraine. I had taken a number of medications.
But it does actually look pretty good.
It's all right. Yeah. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are we actually here to talk about?
I really feel an important need to talk about hidradenitis suppurativa because we talk about long COVID, which is millions of people who have long COVID. We talk about autism, which is millions of people who have autism, and autism is only 1 or 2% of the population.
Yeah, and we did a whole episode on my dizziness, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Hidradenitis suppurativa is an auto...
This is a disease you have.
It's a disease I have, and it's 4% of people have it.
That's a lot.
It's an autoinflammatory disease, which means it's not an autoimmune disease because there's no like autoimmune marker that you look for to test for it. But it is just a condition that occurs when your immune system overreacts to something that someone with a, typical immune system would not overreact to. And there would be no like big problem. But since my immune system is made of cottage cheese and chicken wire, it overreacts to things that it doesn't need to overreact to. And that happens in my skin when a hair follicle gets too much keratin in it, which might result in a pimple for somebody. For me, it results in, and for 4% of the population, it results in a huge boil. Incredibly painful, large breakout.
What specifically is a boil?
It's like a cyst. It's like when there's this excess keratin in the hair follicle. The hair follicle can close up and become clogged, but the immune system reacts and sends all of this inflammatory reaction to it and fills that follicle with stuff, with more keratin, with pus, with, body things.
So people who have this, what they will notice is on the outside of their body, there'll be a fairly large red lump that is hard.
Yeah, it's often hard. And like a pimple, it can kind of come to a head and burst. That is not the ideal situation. Ideally, the matter inside the follicle will eventually break down and be broken down and eliminated.
Processed by the lymph system, yeah.
Yeah. That would be ideal because when it bursts open, it's much more likely to become infected. And also it's hugely painful if it doesn't break open, and it's even more painful if it does break open, at least temporarily.
So it's painful. It's not just a visible, hard...
It's incredibly painful.
The pain reddish, inflamed lump. It hurts.
Dermatologists acknowledge that it is the most painful skin condition.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The more painful... I mean, you've had shingles, and that hurts a lot.
The thing about HS is that it is considered to be a progressive disease, that it starts, for a lot of people, like puberty. Not always. It can start at any time in your life. But the most common presentation is it starts in puberty when the hormones go bananas. And I have had it since I was at least 19 because I went to a gynecologist, I remember.
Oh, God, this story. I hate it so much.
And I'm laying there on the table, legs out for the world not the world. It was the gynecologist. I'm like,
for your doctor.
Yeah, for my doctor. And she pokes at a lump on my like inner thigh. And it's a really hard, like a little bit smaller than a golf ball, but about the same texture. And she kind of rubs it and goes, What's this? What is this? And I was like, I don't know, babe, you tell me. And I have seen half a dozen gynecologists, none of whom clocked it. I even asked, like, I have these, I thought maybe it was herpes or something because it comes and goes in waves. So
herpes look really different from that, though.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm talking about this here that I'm describing is like stage 1 of hidradenitis suppurativa, which I'll just call HS.
Say the full name slowly if people want to Google it.
Hidradenitis Suppurativa, and it will be spelled out correctly in the episode title.
Okay.
So that's stage 1 is when there's like an occasional kind of lump, bump, open sore, open wound. Stage 2 is when the wounds kind of add up on top of each other. There's multiple at the same time so that they create tunnels between each other. They get so large that they connect.
Under the skin.
Under the skin. That's stage 2. When there's still healthy tissue between the tunnels, that's stage 2. Stage 3 is when there is no healthy tissue and like a whole big mass of skin, like for example, your entire armpit is just a mass of tunnels and abscesses. That's stage 3. None of these is a measurement of severity. These are just the stages of the disease as it progresses. Severity, it can be extremely severe at stage 1, which is to say you can have an abscess that is huge and immensely painful and debilitating, but only one. But it like stops you from living your life because it's so intensely painful. And these things generally occur. They can occur anywhere you have hair follicles. But in general, they tend to appear in places where your skin folds. So
armpits and crotches.
Armpits, groins, under boob. So for example, an entire armpit, that's stage 3. But if you have, but that might not be very painful. It might be like on its way to being healed and like, no, and like feel okay. But probably not. Probably it hurts like mother frickin' hell. Okay, so I mentioned that it's 4% of the population. 4% of the population, I said. And it also, one of the things it has in common with autism is that people face challenges getting a diagnosis because of stigma and lack of options. And I think one of the reasons is that it's 3 times more common in AFib folks in the US, although there are regions in the world where it's more common in male people. And I think asking for help is a thing that, you know, women in the US don't do, especially when you do ask for help and your doctor fingers a big old abscess in your thigh and goes, "What's this? Sorry, I'm just really curious." Anyway, it's reportedly more common among smokers, fat people, and people with highly melanated skin, but it's also vastly underreported. Like, I had it for decades. And
yeah, as you're talking about it, I am recognizing that that's an experience. So when I was cycling long distances and or very frequently, I would get things like this, red, pretty hard, sort of oblong shaped things that if I squeezed it, it got dimples like a golf ball. in my inner thigh.
Yeah, it's
Specifically, like the crease of my inner thigh.
It's possible. There's no research that shows that like activity would make it worse.
It had to do with irritation of hair follicles.
No,
the
natural
friction and
process
rubbing.
of keratin being deposited into a hair follicle goes wrong.
Just goes wrong.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do to prevent it is the thing. There's no, if I avoid this. I mean, if you engage in behaviors that reduce inflammation overall, you can potentially reduce this kind of inflammatory reaction. Because that's what it is. It's an inflammatory response. It has nothing to do with hygiene. It's not communicable. There's no reason that there would be stigma attached to this, except that it happens in like your private areas and your dirty areas, most commonly, because those are the parts where the skin folds. And that's really, I guess if the skin folding is it.
But it doesn't happen because of a lack of hygiene.
No.
In those areas.
Yeah. It might be more likely to get infected if the area isn't clean. But in general, people with HS shower more than regular people. Because when it does ooze, when there are open tunnels,
it'd be gross.
It oozes and it's dank. So another overly inflammatory thing that my body does is mast cell activation syndrome. Mast cells are cells that are involved in the immune system, and when they become overly, activated, you get this is the thing that was killing people at the end of COVID when it first came out, was the cytokine storm. Not the coughing, not but like the overreaction of the immune system. So mast cell activation is related to that. And that is much more likely in autistic people. And I wonder if HS is more common in autistic people because of the likelihood that our immune systems are more kind of fragile than typical. Anyway, so the locations of these cysts and boils are like, they feel private. It feels like places where you don't want to go ask a doctor. So one of the reasons I never got a diagnosis, I do have some in my armpit, but they're very, very minor and they never bothered me. But the ones that are in my gynecological region were never recognized by a gynecologist. And I've never been to a dermatologist because I've never had like a serious skin thing that I wanted to talk to a dermatologist about. But even if I did, would I be like laying on a table with my legs in stirrups for a dermatologist? Is that how you get that diagnosed?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. So I think a lot of people miss the diagnosis because it is in a place where regular doctors aren't going to just like casually be like, oh yeah, I see that thing on your skin. That's blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I want to talk about what kind of pain it is.
Okay.
Because there is the achy lumps, like I was talking about, but it can also just cause the kind of like raw burning, like surface level, like friction, because like the feeling of an open wound. And when the abscess has become big enough, there's like a sharp stabbing pain. It's like walking around with a knife stuck in wherever it is. And if that place is in a place where it's affected by your legs moving, it makes walking really difficult. If you have to use your arms and it's in your armpit, that becomes extremely difficult to like raise your arms because there's a knife in your armpit. So even the unburst blisters. And because people don't know anything about it, when you go to like urgent care and you're like, I have this abscess and the pain is debilitating, what do I do? What they're going to do is they're going to drain it. They're going to poke it open and they're going to drain it. And that, it turns out, is like the worst thing you can do. It's just going to make it more likely for another abscess to come back in that location. The treatment that you can only get really at some dermatologists is to de-roof an abscess that's really bad, to completely remove the skin on the top and just leave it completely open, not to just poke a little tiny hole that's going to close up and leave an empty abscess behind, all ready to be filled again, but rather just to de-roof the whole thing. And that in the end is
That sounds agonizing.
Oh yeah. I mean, from people I've heard talk about this surgery, it is way less uncomfortable than the abscesses themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that like a curative treatment?
Potentially, yeah. Only for specifically just the places that have been de-roofed, but usually those places are at stage 3. I mean, they're not going to do surgery on you unless you're having like a very severe situation. So they will remove the surface and it will heal up and it'll be like new skin. But yeah, there's always a chance it could come back in that area. Because again, any place you have a hair follicle can be a location. People get it on their faces, on their heads, on their necks, in perfectly visible areas. There's a TED talk of a kid, not a kid, he's in his like early 20s, I think, talking when he's like, I have HS, and you can see it on his neck, on his face. Because it's not just in the private places, but, you know. So I thought that it's a disease that has a lot in common with all the other crap we talk about. And I know that it's kind of specific, but Lord, if there's one person who's got the big painful abscesses, who's like, what the hell are these? I thought, you know, maybe I'll help one person get a diagnosis faster so they can, you know, just to talk about this is what this is.
Yeah. If we're going to do that, then we need to talk about effective strategies for going in and talking to a medical provider and not saying, Dr. Google told me.
Yeah, because that is how I found out it was hidradenitis suppurativa. And then the next time I went to a gynecologist, I said, I have hidradenitis suppurativa. And she was like, oh yeah, I can see the scars here. It was a new gynecologist.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she would have clocked it on her own, but every gynecologist I'd had so far to date didn't come up with that even when they could see it in front of them. Nobody was like, wow, hey, this is hidradenitis suppurativa. Not a single one. But when I said, you know, when Dr. Google I didn't say it. I just said flat out, I have hidradenitis suppurativa. And she was like, oh yeah, that's clear to me that that's what this is.
So one way to go about talking to a medical provider about it is just to present it as a fait accompli, something that you have already been diagnosed with, not mentioning in what way you were diagnosed with it. I'm just saying this is a situation that I have, so you know.
Yeah.
And
look, let me tell you, this thing is visually distinctive. When you look at the pictures and you go, yep, I have that, yep. Mm-hmm. In general, there is a problem of diagnosis. On average, and you hear the statistic bandied about everywhere, on average, HS takes 7 years to get diagnosed. From the time somebody goes, I have a problem, till somebody goes, that's HS, 7 years.
So if it is visually distinctive, then if you go in and say, so I have the situation, it is so painful. And obviously I did the thing people do, which is I looked it up online and I found these pictures that look exactly like what I have and nothing else looks like this. So I'm wondering if it might be this. And I know we should not have to do this kind of emotional labor with our medical providers, but the reality is they are mostly intensely burnt out, overwhelmed, exhausted, functioning within a profoundly maladaptive. Oh my God. Yeah, okay.
Shelly cat, Shelly cat. Just for the record, the cat got very quiet very fast. The cat is still alive. While Emily's gone dealing with the cat poopies, I will tell you that there's this conversation about how body size makes it worse because of, oh, maybe it causes more skin folds. There's really no evidence that gaining weight or losing weight changes the severity of the disease. And I will tell you that I have had symptoms since I was 6 sizes smaller than I am now. And gaining weight has never corresponded to the severity of my symptoms. Never once. You know what does? Hormones and mast cell activation. Those are the only things I have experienced in my life that make HS worse or better.
Anyway, we shouldn't have to do emotional labor.
So another reason that you shouldn't have to do this emotional labor, and some of the emotional labor is also, like, if they've heard anything about HS, they're gonna talk about your weight, and they're gonna talk about smoking, and both of those things are.
Yeah. So, and
Only as far as inflammation corresponds on a large scale
From
systemic level.
An emotional labor point of view, if your doctor talks about those things, let him talk about it, and you just water off a duck's back. Just let it be not relevant to your situation, and set that information aside because that is not your situation.
I have been told that I have to lose weight for treatment for other things. Never for this. I've never been told any treatment for this.
It sounds like there is not any treatment for this apart from globally reducing inflammatory processes in your body.
Globally reducing inflammatory processes, which no one has ever, which the one gynecologist who I told directly was like, oh yeah, well, it was kind of like, there's nothing we can do about that. Or maybe see a dermatologist. Anyway, yeah, globally reducing inflammation is the thing you can do. So like dietary changes, potentially, maybe, if you eat foods that feel inflammatory and you recognize that, maybe don't eat those foods so much, processed foods and high sugar foods. And we've already done the food episodes.
Yeah.
But like, it's really going to matter vastly. One of the reasons that we have talked about kind of eating keto, but not really like strictly keto, but just like super low sugar, super low carb, which I don't recommend that anyone else do. It's just the thing that happens to feel the best for me. Mm-hmm. That does reduce the severity of HS outbreaks. It does.
And also, that way of eating is hugely more expensive than...
Hugely more expensive. But as I am progressing through my perimenopause journey and my periods are less and less common, I have fewer breakouts. They were very directly correlated with my menstrual cycle. So they are getting better. Fingers crossed, it is possible that menopause will reduce the breakouts significantly because estrogen is a clear thing that correlates with the severity of the breakouts. But, I mean, maybe not. Some people develop HS in their 70s.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So the thing about HS that's more painful than shingles is that it lasts potentially decades.
Yeah.
And comes and goes in flares.
Like herpes.
I only have stage 2 disease. I don't have stage 3. So I have not sought extraordinary intervention to this point. If you Google HS treatments, there is some evidence to suggest that possibly laser hair removal that destroys the hair follicle permanently can reduce outbreaks if you destroy the hair follicle. Because anywhere you have a hair follicle, And hey, did you know that burn scars don't have hair follicles? So if you were burned all over the surface of your body, which believe me is a very, very stupid comparison to make, but if you had burn scars instead of HS, that would be a trade-off that I, who have had both, I mean, like, burn scars are like long-term scars. They change the texture and the stretchability of your skin, and they're painful long-term. But is the pain of a burn scar worse than the pain of an HS breakout? Like, kind of no.
If my sound quality got worse, that's because I just had to turn on a fan.
Ew, I can't hear it.
Our cat is 20, and she's having troubles.
I did just go on a little diatribe about how burn scars don't have hair follicles.
Yeah.
Burn scars cause chronic pain. But like, it's a toss-up whether I would rather have a burn scar or an HS breakout, or even just the potential for an HS breakout.
So, this is a nice, simple topic that will result in a nice short episode, which is great. So, could you tell us, just lay it out for us, how knowing about HS helps us with the whole stronger than the fire thing? The world's on fire.
Yeah. I think that look, people with HS are twice as likely to die by suicide. This is...
Jesus God.
Yeah. This is a disease that has pain, chronic pain, stigma, little research. It harms people's social lives. It harms people's abilities to do the things that give them joy. This is a very severe disease. Even though all it is skin condition, it's uncontrollable in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, specifically for the 4% of us who actually have this condition, knowing about it and understanding that they're not alone. And, like, we live in a world now where there are multiple podcasts by people who have HS. I think there's a series called the Hidradenitis Suppurativas of, like, a couple of women with talking about, like, the science of HS. And it's like, you live in a world now
We'll
where you
put a
can
link
go find
to
out,
that
oh
in
my
the
God, I'm
bio.
not alone.
Yeah. So you don't feel quite so isolated, and you don't feel quite so helpless and trapped, which are some of the highest risk factors for not wanting to be alive anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not alone. And you know what? Like, there's no reason to have a stigma about it. Like, for me, the main social difference was that I didn't know how to wear a bathing suit in public because I've got red lumps and purple scars around my bikini line, which I've worn like little skirts. And I now have like a little like union suit, romper type bathing suit that has like shorts with like a 6-inch inseam to cover all of the scars. A lot of people have much worse disease than that, and a lot of people have it stop their lives. And if we're going to be stronger than the fire, the things that solve this problem are the same things that keep us from burning out just because of
Overall
how
illness.
awful everything is.
Yeah.
This is just one more thing, but, you know, the things that we do to deal with it and manage it are the same things that we do to deal with and manage
Everything.
everything.
So the baseline kindness and motherfucking compassion. When outbreaks happen, when scars form, you turn toward them. This is the new hotness. You allow them to exist with kindness and compassion and forgiveness instead of berating your body for doing a thing that you can't control and that you do not like. Just allow it to be a neutral experience that is part of living in a mammalian body.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be like that. There are days when you're going to have grief and rage and despair and uncomfortable, unpleasant emotional experiences. And just turn toward all those experiences also with kindness and motherfucking compassion, because it is normal to have those experiences, those emotional experiences in response to situations where you kind of are helpless. But you are not alone with it, and you are not trapped.
Yeah. And there is hope. There's every reason to believe that surgery can work long term. That is, there's evidence to show that that's, you know, probably going to help. And anybody who has HS is probably like, surgery, bring it on. I don't, the pain, I can totally manage that. That's awesome. I'd much rather have, I'd like to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And like the change in hormones, going on the pill can help. Reducing the sugar you eat can help. Sometimes just taking antihistamines can help. Like, there's so much that could help. You have to know what it is. That's one of the main things
One of the main things is knowing that it exists, that that's what it is.
You got to know that's what it is. It's not herpes, and it's not, or any other kind of, it's not a sexually transmitted disease. You can't give it to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Not communicable.
One of the things I thought might happen is that we would record this and you would be like, oh yeah. Well, I guess you did say you kind of have those.
Yeah.
You get them sometimes.
But for me, it's
when there's a lot of rubbing.
Very clearly associated with there's a lot of rubbing, specifically cycling.
Yeah.
And occasionally, if I use the wrong kind of antiperspirant, I'll get it'll impact the clogging of my hair follicles in my armpit. And it'll be like a big, sore, red blob that lasts months. It takes months to resolve.
You just nailed the description of how it starts. That's how it begins. It might be something more like a blackhead, like in the beginning. That might be the most minor, but like the big, incredibly painful thing that takes months to heal, so that by the time you have, another period and it's a month later and you get another one, now they take so long to heal. They take so long to heal.
So I think I almost certainly have it, just to a much lesser degree.
To a much less degree. And that indeed is true for like a lot of the kind of disease things, because I've always been the sickly twin. I was the Danny DeVito to your Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I mean,
like, I was always homesick from school.
I'm the one with the bad balance and dizziness. I'm the one with the peripheral arterial disease that's been progressing since I was 35. I'm not like all set.
No. But I do have a longer history. Like, I've had this since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
For sure, I've had this since I was a teenager. Fully 30 plus years.
Yeah, and outbreaks that have been with you for a large proportion of your lifespan, as opposed to like they come and they go and they come and they go. It's been like they come and they are like on their way out when the next round hits, and that's how you get the channels.
When I was on the pill, I didn't get them as often.
And now you cannot get a prescription for the pill because you get migraine with aura.
Yeah.
And there's not a gynecologist in the world who recognizes that, like, actually maybe the increased but still very low risk of stroke is worth it if it means getting rid of all the other stuff that the pill can manage.
Yeah, like endometriosis, which I also have.
And affects your life like every fucking day. But like there's an increased...
But like insurance companies won't sanction giving me the pill.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because migraine with aura. Although I get a half a dozen migraines a year. Not even every month do I have a migraine. And I would happily trade a migraine for HS. Assuming that they didn't come.
Wow.
If I had migraines as often as I had HS breakouts... I mean, but the thing is they last for months, so how do you trade? Whatever. That's just a thought exercise.
Yeah. Would you have a migraine for months at a time instead of having HS for months at a time?
No. Because most of the breakout is tolerable. There's only a handful of days when the pain is really debilitating.
Right. Like with migraine, there's only a handful of days.
And it depends on where the location is. Sometimes the location is someplace where it doesn't bother me much. Until I, like, sit down quite heavily. If I go, ow!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need an episode where I didn't do a lot, because I have actually been having a lot of migraines lately.
Yeah, and you basically had to move house.
Yeah, for complicated reasons.
Which is one of the most stressful things that a person can do.
Life was very stressful for a while, on top of our cat being very seriously unwell. And yeah, so my brain has not been great lately. So it was nice for me to have an episode where I didn't have to do a lot of work.
Yeah. I know.
All I had to do was be like, the thing we say all the time, kindness and motherfucking compassion, turn toward the uncomfortable situation with kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have to do emotional labor for our doctors, because our doctors are all burnt the fuck out. And it's not their personal individual fault that the medical system is as bad as it is in the United States. It's not like that everywhere, but it's kind of like that. Kind of everywhere, unless you're super wealthy.
Yeah. And like a lot of the other things we talk about, we're identical twins.
And we vary.
Who were raised in the same household, and our experience varies dramatically. Mm-hmm. You've had the same reaction. And anybody can have like a lump where their body overreacts to some keratin in the hair follicle. It's when it's, a chronically recurring problem that it becomes... The thing is that it makes itself
Is
worse.
it related to KP, the chicken skin on the back of your arm situation?
Because that is also a hyperkeratinosis thing. I mean, it's the same mechanism to start with, in that there's too much keratin and the thing closes over and it becomes a teeny weeny little lump. But HS becomes a great big giant. So no, it's not the same because
Yeah. KP is not painful. It's tiny, tiny red bumps. It pretty much is permanent. There is treatment that mostly involves chemical exfoliant applied on a pretty regular basis. That's it.
and when it comes down to it, the symptoms of HS are skin symptoms. The mechanism of HS is inflammatory, is auto-inflammatory.
Okay, then.
So it's we now probably should also talk about a little bit of polyvagal theory as related to this, because it's when your body feels unsafe is when inflammation goes extra bananas, when your body is in fight or flight, when you're experiencing stress.
Right, sure. So that's why we're turning toward difficult feelings with kindness and compassion.
Like you say all the time that like when you have a stress response, one of the things that happens is that your skin moves away from...
Your blood moves away from the surface of your skin.
Your blood moves away from the surface of your skin. So if you get cut, you're less likely to bleed. There are lots of skin things that happen that are activated by the stress response, including your oil glands. And like when your hair stands on end, that's a stress response that below the level of conscious awareness
Piloerection.
can... Yeah.
It's called piloerection. Your hair stands on end.
Yeah, your hair stands on end. That's your hair follicles reacting to stress. In a very ancient, like, make myself look bigger, puff my fur out kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, your skin responds to stress. If anybody's ever had a breakout, like of just regular old acne after a stressful or during a stressful situation, that's because your skin responds to stress.
Hives.
Hives is another skin condition. Yeah. So all of the things that help you move through stress, if stress is a factor that, you know, one of the things with HS is because it's so, it comes and goes in such cycles that are multi-weeks, multi-months long. It requires tracking to really start to notice what what the activators are. Yeah, I tracked it for years, and the only thing that would predict it was menstrual cycle. And once I knew twice I knew for sure I was having a mast cell activation episode, and HS also got worse at the same time. So
tracking
over months, and figuring out what the triggers are, figuring out what makes it worse, what makes it better.
Very much like migraine.
Unfortunately, this is another one of those things where you are the only person who can be an expert in this. In your
own case.
In your HS, yeah. Which sucks. That feels so terrible and so frustrating, like so goddamn much work. Especially if you have other things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work. It's exhausting. I get why people feel hopeless about it and enter a state of despair, because it feels overwhelming. But there's so much hope, and you know, you track a thing, you mention it to your doctor like it's a foregone conclusion, and you connect to all the people on the internet now who are talking about their HS and being mad about the same things you're mad about.
I bet it's got a subreddit.
Doesn't have any. I don't do Reddit, so I don't know, but I completely expect that yes, it has a subreddit. So I wanted to talk about this because this is the thing I deal with, and it's more common than friggin' autism.
And we are going to do a shadow episode. It's not all the episodes are not going to be like, here's a disease I have. Well, here's a disease I have.
But it is funny that this one, it overlaps so much with the same systemic challenges. It affects women in the US more than men, although that's not true globally. Like, it has this stigma. It's hard to get a diagnosis. It has all of the ingredients of a thing that can make you burn out. Because it has all the same, hurdles of an unjust medical system.
Yep. If people want to send us emails about the diseases they have that have used up a lot of bandwidth and have made it more difficult for them to tolerate living in a world of rising autocracy, tell us what they are.
Yeah.
We'll read a list of hey, listeners, you're not alone. Here is just some of the diseases that listeners are living with.
Yeah.
That's like making life more difficult, because a lot of people in the women's wellness space, I say with heavy air quotes, talk about like what a joy it is to live in a body and really embracing like their internal and like like the pleasures of the body. But like we are the ones who consistently are like, all of that is true. And when you can turn toward your internal experience with kindness and compassion, you will be healthier. That's a reality. And also, let's not ignore or downplay how inconvenient and uncomfortable it can be to live in a body. And there's no way to separate living in a body from responding to and coping with gestures broadly.
Yeah. All of the everything.
All of the everything that is around us every day, especially if you're paying attention to the news and such.
Yeah. So if there's one person who had mystery lumps that recurred and is like, oh, I have a name for this thing now.
Yeah.
I hope I helped one person.
Yeah. Because you have a name for it. You know, you're not alone. You know, there are some things that you can do to help reduce the impact. And certainly you can start tracking and look for patterns.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about it being contagious or,
yeah,
you know, because it's your fault. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
Your immune system is just a little freaky.
Aren't we all?
And you know what? Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I think we did
it.
Roll ukulele.
Hooray. Cue the ukulele.
Just for the record, the cat got very quiet very fast. The cat is still alive.